Ready? Okay. So, like everyone else, we're going to be talking about Becton Dickinson, the path to innovation and growth. My name is Tina.
I'm Jared.
Nicole, Emily.
Stu.
And together we make up Team Jetsons. So I'm going to be, doing the introduction, and then we're going to move on to the issues and problems, an analysis of those problems, some solutions, and conclusion and recommendation. So with my introduction, I'm going to do just a little history of Becton Dickinson, or BD. So BD is a New Jersey-based global medical device company. They were founded in 1897 by Maxwell Becton and Fairleigh Dickinson. So they're a 122-year-old company. And then as of October 2011, Vince Forlenza became their chairman and CEO. And then just some quick stats. In 2015, they had revenues of $10.3 billion, 49,000 employees, and operations in approximately 50 countries. For most of BD's history, they had been a leading provider of medical device products found in hospitals around the world. They prided themselves on their best-in-class and consistently improving products. But several years before Forlenza became the CEO, he noticed that they needed to change. They couldn't no longer just continue to improve on the products. They needed to create new products, services, and solutions to meet the needs of their customers. But with any new idea comes challenges, especially if you've been kind of doing the same thing for a little over 100 years. The problem was that the challenges that they faced were internal problems, not external problems like competitors and things like that. So that made it a little bit more frustrating because, with internal problems, you can change it. It's just something that you have to do. So in 2010, they launched a transformation effort to improve its innovation systems, change its organizational structure and culture, and better position them for growth. So like I said, they wanted to grow, but they had two big problems in the way. The first one was they were kind of resistant to new ideas. They wanted new ideas, but they were kind of stuck in their old ways. And the second one was their business units were given excess authority, so they weren't really cohesive units. Each individual department, for example, wanted their own thing and to benefit themselves and not the company as a whole. So with that being said, I'm going to hand it off to Nicole to talk about the issues and problems at BD.
Okay, so like Tina said, the first issue that we found was the resistance to new ideas. Rewards for high performances were not always attractive, which led the people or employees to not be motivated for these new ideas or even stay with the company. Not only was there a lack of motivation, but BD avoided new ideas from young talent, giving no priority to any idea that was presented. BD continuously shot down these new ideas with little to no processes to promote these new ideas. And with no support for these ideas, the innovation continued to lack, which is a big problem for the company because with innovation you are able to grow, and growth is, as we all know, important for many companies. Staying in their comfort zone, BD never made any effort to take any kind of risk, even calculated risks. Additionally, there were no budgets set aside for innovation, putting a lot of ideas to a halt because if there's no budget, how can new ideas proceed? Lastly, all of these added to the fact that the employees were continuously discouraged to innovate and create these ideas for BD. And then the next issue that we found was that business units were given an excessive amount of authority. Instead of making acquisition decisions based on long-term goals with innovation and growth in mind, BD is being influenced by individual business units. Business units have a lot of freedom and power in terms of business decisions such as direction and or budgets. But BD also continued to focus on short-term financial performance, which resulted in slack in the system to pursue this innovation. This means that because of short-term goals being the priority for business units, there weren't a lot of resources for innovation. Because of the priorities of different business units, BD's motivation was for short-term financial goals and not strategic. Additionally, because of a lack of collaboration between different business units, teams had a win at all costs attitude rather than a win-win attitude, which is something that the partners did not favor. And now Emily will be discussing the analysis of our issues.
So for the first issue, the company's resistance to new ideas stems from years of consensus decision-making, which blocks pursuing bold projects. Instead of nurturing concepts, the company steadily rejects all risky ideas. As a result, the company rarely engages in constructive conflict, eliminating any creative discussions between management. While non-tenured employees get along quite well, the firm consensus culture in the company makes it difficult for outside hires to fit in, and this also makes it difficult for them to establish themselves in strategic management positions where they can potentially integrate much needed innovative ideas into discussions. This also leads to high turnover rates for new hires, which further cements the companies in its old ways. Finally, the company emphasizes short-term financial performance as opposed to long-term financial performance. They do this by improving current product lines as opposed to introducing and developing new products. Consequently, BD lacks the funding to pursue innovative projects and business development plans. And Jared is going to analyze the second issue.
Our second issue is business units are given too much authority over their own organization. And this overall leads to a slowing down of communication, decisions, which overall affects the corporation as a whole, but the individual business units as well. As I just mentioned, these units function as individual organizations. So BD is the overarching company, and in the article states there are 8 different subcomponents of this overall corporation. And if they're all functioning as their own individual business, getting any innovation or any progress forward is going to be compromised or eventually just lead to a standstill. Lack of cross-functional teams, so this goes back to the businesses working as an individual unit. This doesn't lead to collaboration, this doesn't lead to communication throughout the company, and this will hinder any innovation or any progress moving forward. Also, executive control on the budgets. So these individual business units have control over the budget, have control over essentially everything that goes into their organization. So they could be misusing their funds accordingly and not allocating them directly towards innovation or any processes that can further increase revenue based on innovation for BD. And I will hand it over to Emily with our first solution.
BD should implement an innovative training program, and the purpose of this program, the program will focus on leadership and growth, with the purpose of encouraging innovative behaviors and diminishing that anti-risk mentality that's embedded in BD culture. To accomplish this, the program will implement constructive challenge in which individuals and teams will offer constructive feedback during discussions on innovation and project decisions. And the idea is to get BD comfortable with pursuing bold projects. In addition to receiving feedback from its employees, they will also receive feedback from their customers. This will further help them develop their business strategy and understand their customers' needs. We believe this is essential, especially in their international markets. Their international customers, their demands differ from the demands of the US, so it's important to understand what their needs are and invest research in those to provide solutions for those needs. So the program will also redirect research and development to new products instead of exclusively focusing on existing products. As we know, only 5% of the company need to be on board with an idea so that they can follow through with it. So this plan will help BD on their way to innovation and more openness to experience.
Our second solution to the business units having too much authority is going to be giving these business units less autonomy over their organizations. So one way that we can do that is consolidating the management. So instead of having 8 different units, the life sciences and the medical units, we can consolidate those into 4, maybe 2, to expedite communication and innovation as well. Corporate oversight of spending. So this means previously the units had control of their budget. They were able to use those resources appropriately as they saw fit. So this will allow, at the corporate level, BD to disperse the funds according to the needs of their business as a whole, instead of just the respiratory market or the diabetic medical technology or even the life sciences. This will also focus on cross-functional business units. So this goes with domestic as well as international. BD previously focused more on a silo type environment, so there was no cross-collaboration, and this would lead to lack of communication, and in the international markets, there was no progress being made there. So focusing on team building and cross-functional units will allow for progress in that dimension. And this will overall lead to a reallocation of budget for innovation on the money that is saved by consolidating the management and having corporate oversight on the budget funds. And I will hand it over to Sue for our conclusion.
So to conclude, we began by giving everyone a small introduction on exactly what BD does and what its current situation in the market is today. So the reason that BD needs to change is that their entire mindset has been, if something's working, then why change anything? Well, that mindset is what put BD into trouble in the first place when it comes to innovation and growth. That mindset is very detrimental to innovating and creating new products and promoting new ideas. So with that said, the main problems that we identified based on BD's current situation is their aversion to new ideas as well as risks. Any new idea comes with a risk, so BD needs to analyze what is the risk that can be tolerated so that it can come up with new ideas rather than discouraging anything new being done ever. That's not the way that a company can improve, that's not the way a company can iterate, and that's definitely not the way that a company can grow. Additionally, business units in BD were given too much authority. Now, on its own, you may not think that's such a bad idea, and inherently, it's not the fault of the business units themselves that BD took different decisions, because again, if you're given the authority to make decisions for your own unit, the idea behind it is you're going to focus on what makes your unit work better, what makes your unit work faster, what makes more financial sense for your own unit. But the way that it worked against BD's interests is that it moved its focus from long-term goals and innovation to short-term goals. So it was like the little wins that they were taking, which in the long run ended up affecting them negatively. That being said, the solutions that we proposed was building new leaders who focused on innovation. So the new innovation training program that we went over focuses on changing this mindset. And changing culture is not a one or 2 day or even a 1 or 2 month process. It takes time. So this new leadership program works on building employees from the ground up. Identify those leaders who have the ability to move the company in the right direction and give them the tools that they need to move BD towards innovation and growth. The second solution that we proposed was removing some autonomy from business units. Business units having too much power is affecting BD in a bad way. Where because of the different priorities that each individual business unit has, BD itself is not able to have a long-term goal or a long-term mindset to solving problems. Next slide. So finally, we come to our recommendation. For our recommendation, we chose the solution which suggests that BD create leaders to focus on innovation. This is an inherently internal problem that BD has. If they do not do anything to address their internal work culture, which is extremely resistant to new ideas and focusing on existing ideas that already work, it's going to cause a problem in the future, and we already saw that causing a problem recently with new products not being developed based on customer needs, as well as current products given too much priority. That being said, introducing these leadership training programs will not only allow new leaders to take ownership of new ideas and actually try to innovate and come up with new solutions to customer needs. It will also promote actual innovation with BD rather than sticking to what has worked for 100 years. Again, it will encourage constructive criticism. So one of the things that we saw was that a big problem that BD had was that there was a lot of focus on consensus-driven decision-making. What this ended up doing is it discouraged positive and negative feedback kind of coming to clash. And negative feedback being viewed as a bad thing is not something that is constructive at the end of the day. Being able to take the positives and negatives, learn from it, and make decisions based on it is what BD needs to do. Additionally, customer feedback is inherent to any sort of new product being built. If the last thing that any company wants to do is build a product that a customer is not going to use. And that's where the whole risk factor comes in. BD has an aversion to risks because it believes that it needs to build products that eventually customers are going to buy, that customers are going to use. So how do you do that? You start by collecting this customer feedback, analyzing that customer feedback, and using it to actually make decisions. And this leadership program puts a focus on customer feedback being one of the decision-making processes in order to truly innovate. Lastly, we want to have more R&D to build new products rather than concentrate on the current product portfolio that BD has. This will allow BD to, while keeping its current product portfolio, actually devote some funds, devote some resources to new ideas as well. It's not enough to just have a new idea. You have to put the time, the resources, and the effort behind it to make sure that it's a success. And we believe that this leadership program is going to help BD actually address all of these issues. So that's about it. Thank you.
Good. Thanks, guys.